Our session right now is Introduction to the Alexander Technique, and it will conclude at 12:25 this evening, giving everyone a chance to stretch before continuing on to the next session of your Tikkun adventure. I'm very excited to introduce tonight's presenters, Melissa Brown and Morgan Rysdon. They're both nationally certified teachers of the Alexander Technique, and thank you so much for joining us tonight as I pass it off to them.
Thank you so much and welcome everyone. I think that Joelle meant 1:25 we're going to end. So Melissa and I, yeah, it's okay. I just was like, wait a minute, what time is it? Right? So I am very excited to be here with everybody. My colleague Melissa and I went to school together where we got our certification. As Joelle mentioned, we are both nationally certified Alexander Technique teachers, which means that after we got degrees, then we went into a teacher training program and got 3 more additional years for our certification program. It's over 1,600 hours. It's a very hands-on, in-depth training to become teachers. And I'm very grateful that there's some silver linings during this pandemic where I, despite having moved to Atlanta, have been able to reconnect with Melissa and the JCC, where we've been collaborating and creating classes together. So we taught together in Manhattan and now again online. So it's been such a pleasure. I know that a lot of you are muted, but we definitely want you to feel free to interrupt us, to ask questions. Chances are if you have a question, somebody else has a question. So you can either drop it in the chat box or you can also save it at the end because we will leave a little bit of room after we've gotten done with some experiential learning and definitely some educating you all this evening. So if there's any questions that you have, you can also wait till the end. All right. So to begin with, I would love to find out from any of you if anybody has heard of the Alexander Technique, if anybody has ever studied the Alexander Technique, and if so, what that learning might have involved. Maybe you took private lessons, maybe you've taken classes. So if anybody has done that, you can either raise your hand or you can unmute. Or you can even drop it. And then also, I kind of wanted to ask you guys, because our next series is going to be focused a lot on posture. Oftentimes, people who study the Alexander Technique, usually they're interested in posture. They come with problems with either back pain or maybe they know that this has helped people with improving their posture. And so that's actually what our next series is going to be focused on. So we thought that we would address some of those things this evening with you. Gabriella said, I've heard of it, but I have no idea what it is. Super excited. Great. Yeah. A lot of people have heard of it. And they're like, where have I heard of this? Oh yeah, I think I know somebody. So that's what we're hoping tonight is to give you a little bit of an introduction. And so while it's not only helping people with back pain and it's not only helping people with posture, it covers a lot of different things. I think this evening we want to dive into the ways that a lot of people can apply it to improving their posture. So if you're interested, you can go ahead. I'm going to pass it off to Melissa. She's going to get us started just with a little bit of background and such on how we can look at sitting and standing. So I'll just pass it on to her.
That sounds wonderful. And I want to just echo what Morgan said about how wonderful it's been to co-teach with her and have the opportunity to teach all you folks. We have our series and I encourage you to check our series out. And we've just been teaching now for, I guess, pretty much through the whole pandemic at this point. So most of you don't have your cameras on. And if anybody is interested, we are going to do some experiential work. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the Alexander principles that relate to posture. Oh, hi, Ellen. How are you? I'm just encouraging you because I can see you when you're moving and maybe give you a little feedback. It's a pretty small group, but it is late, so I totally get it if people want to keep their cameras off. In any case, so I'm going to talk to you about Alexander principles that relate to posture and also just give you a few experiential activities to illustrate that, and also just to give you a feel of what the technique is and how we work. So fundamentally, if I were to talk about an overview of how the Alexander Technique, how we relate to posture, we really want our students to find posture good posture through ease. Most of the time, I'm just curious if anybody wants to respond. What do you usually think of good posture as being? Does anybody want to respond to that? I see we have Dina and Ellen. I see you. And Zev. Anybody want to actually respond to that? How about Zev? Do you have any ideas about posture? I guess not. You're muted. But
there he goes.
Good.
Yeah, I guess
Any ideas
posture
about
is like
posture?
putting your body in a way that makes it not hurt.
That's a very Alexandrian concept, actually. There's traditional views, traditional ways that we're all taught to have good posture. Anybody want to talk about what those might be? Like, what were you told as a kid to do to have good posture?
Yeah, Charlie says rigid, stop slouching, shoulders back and down. Yeah, I think a lot of people.
That's it. Yes, right, Morgan. So here's what we often see. And even when we come in a room, this can happen. I'm just going to turn sideways and go back a little bit so you can see me. See something, and you can't see my head, but that's okay. Kind of military, right? Shoulders back, belly tight. This is what we see. And I can walk in a room sometimes and people find out I'm an Alexander teacher, and I start seeing that all around the room as people enter into conversation with me. It is exactly the opposite, right, Morgan? We are looking for you folks to find good posture actually through ease. Stiffening, going military, it actually pulls you out of alignment. If you take a look at me, you see my shoulders are back. I'm pushing my spine forward. How is that good alignment? In fact, we want integration of the spine. We want the spine to move up. So if I'm torquing it by pushing forward, or sometimes by slumping it, those are all very tightening positions. Now I go to my share, my little pictures, and because I'm technically challenged, I have to be a little easy with me on this, or give me a little leeway. So hang on, I'm going to go to this. No, back. So what do you see here? Anybody want to respond? Unmute and respond. If not, I can answer my question. All right, we clearly see a baby sitting in sand. Anything you noticed about her back? Does she look like she has good posture?
Yes.
I was going to say.
Yes, I'm reading chats for you.
Oh, read chats, because I don't have them open on this share thing.
Yeah, people are saying it's kind of difficult to unmute, actually. So I think I'll kind of keep an eye on people if you raise your hand to try to ask you to unmute.
Okay, great. And okay, so exactly. This baby has a beautiful integrated back. And if you really look at her, that's what we would consider good posture. And certainly looking at her, she doesn't look tense. She doesn't look military. She doesn't look compressed. She looks easy and integrated. I'm going to answer a lot of my own questions now. So anybody can chime in with anything else, but just to kind of move this part along. So if you look at this woman here, I would say that kind of slouch is what happens to us over the years, right? We imitate parents, or we pull in and pull down because of stress, and we really never come back up. And so over a lifetime, we begin to tighten in and down, which is what we're seeing right there. So there's a lot of tightening there. And as you can see, this young lady is pulling herself out of alignment by slouching and losing the integration of her spine. One of my teachers, actually that was Hope Morgan, one of our teachers used to say, we want to be integrated ear to rear. That's imagining almost like bubbles of champagne or a spout of water. We don't want that to be disrupted. So we want to be easy and at the same time integrated ear to rear, just like that little baby was. So I'm going to give you an experience in a minute. Just one other concept, which is in the Alexander, I'm going to stop share and come back. So with the Alexander technique, there's basically two things we're going to ask you to do. And these are the Alexander general principles. They also relate to posture. We basically are going to be asking you to release habitual compressions that you have in your body. So we all have our own particular habitual compressions that we've built up over the years. I might have tight shoulders up by my ears. I might be slouching. I might be going military. I might tighten my lower back in a certain way. I might tighten my jaw. So we all have these kinds of compressions. So the first thing we ask you to do is to become aware of the compressions and allow them to release, right? And then we don't just collapse into release, because that's not what we want. We want to be present. We want to be in the moment. We want to be comfortable but present. So what's specific to the Alexander technique is we have a very specific way to repattern the body into a new and good posture or good alignment. And the interesting thing is we know release can be done without tightening, right? When we release, we're releasing. We can learn to release our compressions and notice them more and more and more over time. Certainly it's a practice. But where we run into more trouble is when we try to repattern. We've been taught to go military. So that tends, right, Morgan, to stick with us a lot. We've been taught to pull the shoulders back. But the way we repattern in the Alexander technique is actually by doing less, but in a very particular way. We look at the relationship of the head, the neck, and the spine. And very, in a nutshell, what Alexander discovered, because this isn't just a relaxation technique. This is a technique where you're learning to release and create a better use of yourself, better posture, better alignment, more comfort. You know, this life of pulling in and down, we want to find a way to move up. So what Alexander discovered is very particular. Again, we look at the head, the neck, and the spine. And in a nutshell, what Alexander would say is if the neck is released, the spine can move up. Okay. And I'm going to just break that down for you in what, take a moment to break it down. So, and Morgan, I'm going to be simplifying a lot, but I think for this, in this context, I do want to give you, I'm kind of wonky and I love the principles and I do want to talk to you about the principles, okay? So that you have a framework for understanding before we get to the experiential part. So what Alexander discovered was if the neck was easy, the head, I'm going to go profile for you. So he discovered that if the neck was easy, the muscles of the neck would stop pulling the head. So most of us are here or kind of here with very tight necks, right? And once you tighten the neck, those muscles begin to pull the head down. Normally it's back and down. It can be forward and down. But as the muscles pull the head down, that's 12 pounds of weight coming down into your spine, very compressing. However, if you free your neck, allow it to be easy, the head can poise right on top of the spine, which is between your ears. The spine goes up, the neck spine a little higher than you might think. So here I have my head nicely poised. My spine is moving up. And really what's happening is it's the absence of the downward compression of the head and the tightening of the neck onto the spine. I'm going to release my neck. My head can now poise on top of my spine, and my spine can begin to decompress up, allowing the whole torso to lengthen. So that's the Alexander technique in a nutshell. The only thing I'd add is when I'm working with my beginner students, instead of asking you all to free your neck, which can get kind of searchy and actually get kind of tight and military, because in life we don't go around freeing our necks. So what I ask people to do is to let their jaw be easy, Find space between your top and bottom back teeth. And I'd ask you to do that now. And that usually frees up the back of the neck. And then let the tongue soften on the bottom of your mouth. Let it spread. That usually frees up the front of the neck. So you don't even have to worry about freeing your neck, which may be a concept or maybe something that would take a little time for you to do without actually getting the opposite result and tightening it. So I'm going to ask you now to allow your tongue to be easy on the bottom of your mouth, to then allow the jaw to soften. So there's space between your back teeth, top and bottom. And as you're releasing your jaw, know that your neck is beginning to soften back, and those muscles are softening and releasing their grip on your head, so your head can poise right on top of the spine, not push down on it. And now your spine has the space to decompress up, and the whole torso can lengthen. So in a nutshell, there's the Alexander technique. We are releasing unnecessary compressions, and then we are repatterning ourselves. And in a way, our repatterning is another form of undoing tension. So we're creating good posture, not by tightening and going military, but by releasing our particular compressive habits and then going through Alexander's discoveries of how we can repattern in an easy way. So I'd like to do some experiential things. Morgan, do you have anything you want to add in between?
No, I love this. I know some of you, I don't think everyone has the ability to unmute. So feel free to put your questions, or if you're confused or anything, that would be really helpful for us so that we can make sure we address anything that you're curious about. But I saw, like, I feel like Zev was kind of moving around and kind of thinking about what you were saying. You know, I like to see people thinking about their bodies as we're talking about it. So yeah, I'd love to move into the experiential parts of people.
Right. So we're going to do a little bit of experiential, and I'm good with time for you, Morgan, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to do some experiential stuff. And I see, Ellen, that you've learned this in singing, and that's absolutely right. Like the link letter method, there's a lot of releasing to get your sound. And we work with singers as well to really be sure that sound is coming through a free system, not being compressed. You know, once the body is pulling down in any place, that sound doesn't resonate in the same way. So to go on to experiential activities, I'm going to take my chair and bring it far away so you can see me sitting in a chair. And Morgan, just let me know if this works out, because this is always a challenge. I tried to go beforehand. So when I'm standing, can you see the top of my head?
Perfect.
Good. So when I'm sitting, can you see my legs? At least the top to where my knees are, or should I bring it down a little bit?
You could bring it down, but I think you might be good. Depends on what you're
I'll just do a tiny little bit, because I want you to see me. We can't see that many people because a lot of you don't have your cameras on, but I would, if you're not too tired, I would really encourage you to try this with me. I'm going to demonstrate first. Oh, actually, I'm not. If you're seated, what I'm going to ask you to do now, before I demonstrate, is to take your hands and place them under your sit bones. Your sit bones are two little knobby bones that are at the bottom of your pelvis. You'll feel them. Let yourself sit on them and then remove your hands. And I don't know if you guys can unmute, but that usually changes our relationship to the chair, right? We're more settled. So we want to be nicely balanced on our sit bones. So you can, again, I'm going to put my hands in again. I'm going to bring them out, and then I'm just going to rock around on my sit bones and really feel like I'm sitting. I'm not pulling myself up and going military. I'm going to really let myself sit. So we're going to work a little bit on sitting and what happens to our integration when we sit for a moment. So if you can take for one moment a slump, which feels very nice, but is not sustainable. you might start to feel a little tension, maybe in the back body, maybe in your neck, maybe in your shoulders, maybe in your hips. You might not feel it because we just got into the position. But basically, what happens to the spine? Am I integrated ear to rear when I'm pulling myself in like this? How about you, Morgan? Does that look integrated?
Yeah, less so when it's slouched.
Right. So here I am on my sit bones again, and I really feel that I'm pretty integrated ear to rear because I'm really allowing myself to be easy and to really sit. And then if I go military, does the spine look like it's integrated, or does it look like I'm pushing myself around? And this is a very tight position, I have to tell you. This is pretty uncomfortable. I hope you're not doing this too much, because if you really push too much, it's going to be pretty uncomfortable. So you're just going to go back now to your integrated place. And I want to lead you through just a very short little etude. I'm going to come forward again. So what I'm going to do is, I call this my seated etude, where we apply the Alexander technique concepts, sorry, my glasses, to posture as you sit. So again, you want to rock around on your sit bones and you want to really sit. That's the really most important thing. You're not pulling yourself up. You're not coming down in ways that are tightening. You're just really letting yourself sit. And if you're tired, you can bring your pelvis back to the very back of your chair, like all the way back, and lengthen up along the back of the chair. So here we are. The first thing we're going to do is what? Release unnecessary compressions, right? Habitual ways that we pull in and down. So I'm going to lead you through some. Allow your feet to really soften and widen and find the support of the floor. And then let your legs also just do what they need to do, which is very little as you're sitting. So if you find that you're pulling your legs or that they're tight at all, let that go. And let your hip joints be easy and soft. And for one moment, come back to your sit bones, rock around, and then see if you can let your lower back release any pulling in that's going out. Just let it soften and spread back. As if I had my hand on your back, you would allow yourself to meet my hand. Beautiful. That looks wonderful for those of you that I see. Great. And now that you've done that, I want you to just release your shoulders to the side and check in with your own self, because everyone has different habits that they've acquired of compression and tension. And see, maybe your feet, maybe your wrists, maybe your, I don't know, maybe your cheeks. But just check out and see where you might release a little bit more while staying seated on the chair, and try to keep yourself as comfortable as possible. And now we're going to do what Alexander discovered to find the upflow through the spine. So allow your jaw and tongue to be easy, space between your back teeth. Tongue is easy on the bottom of your mouth. And then just know that as you release the jaw and the tongue, the whole three-dimensional neck is softening back. And as it softens back, it releases its grasp, the muscles on your head, the skull. So it's no longer pulling your skull down, but allowing the skull to poise right on top of the neck. And as the skull poises on top of the neck, that downward compression that occurs when the neck pulls the head down can be released, and your spine will begin to decompress upward. And there's nothing to do. The point of this is I don't want you to pull yourself around and go into military, so to speak. I want you to allow not only the release to be gentle, but the repatterning to be gentle, so that you really have that nice baby's back that's integrated and easy. Beautiful. So now we're going to take this seated, we're going to take our sitting into standing. And this I will demonstrate. So I'd like you to watch. Now, if I am in a slump, neck tight, pulled back, I'm exaggerating. Most people don't sit like this. My lower back hurts. I'm tightening in my hips. All over here is tight. So here I am. How am I going to get out of this chair? Well, the only way I can really get out of the chair is by kind of hoisting myself up or pushing up. And when I come up, I'm in a position that is not integrated or easy. And now, if I go military, how am I going to get up? It's really the same way. People sort of have to get momentum and they kind of hoist up, right? So now, how are we going to take this nice place that you all have found? Easy feet, easy legs, easy hip joints, easy back, especially the lower back. Shoulders are easy, jaw, tongue are easy, jaw is not clenched, tongue is soft, neck is released, head now is not being pulled down, but can poise. So here I am with my poised head and my integrated, easy spine and body. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to simply pivot over in your hips, just letting those hip joints be really soft. And when your torso or your body is over your feet, you're just going to lightly push down. So now I've come up without disturbing the integration. The one thing I want to add for you who are doing this is come to the edge of your chair. Mechanically, that will be easier for you. You don't want to be way back in the chair. And just bring your feet, don't have them way out, just bring the 2 feet a little bit closer to the chair. So I don't know if anybody, I'm used to a lot more give and take in these. Does anybody want to just let me know, if not live in the chat, what they discovered?
Well, you know, I will, because I've been kind of seeing some of the chats come in, and, you know, people were talking about being really uncomfortable in their body and sort of just becoming more aware of their sit bones. They already feel different, right, than they're used to. And then also they struggle,
Yep.
you know, finding a comfortable position, which I think is very common. Sue had a good question about just speaking a little bit more about this idea of integration. Maybe you can touch on that before switching over.
Sure. I'm just taking a quick look at some of the, who said it's so painful to sit in a regular shape with my feet on the ground?
That was,
yeah. So just so I'm clear, so people are saying that sitting, and you can just nod your heads, sitting can be uncomfortable, right? Is that what I'm hearing? Good. I think so too. I find it very hard to stay seated. So again, when I'm at my desk, I like to always find my sit bones and not hold myself up, really let myself sit. You might even feel a little bit slumpy, but if you go back to freeing your jaw and your neck and you allow that neck to free, which it will do, you'll start to notice a little bit of an upflow. Of course, our technique is a practice, so it's not something that will happen automatically, but it really is something that you can do for yourself, no question. But let's go back. I had the question about integration. So what I mean by integration in this context is that when we are tense and pulling ourselves out of alignment, whether it's kind of this slump or this military, we're really kind of acting as if we have a waist joint, which we do not have. You know, there is flexibility in your waist, but there is no joint. So we really want to learn to release all of the compressions that pull us out of alignment, right? And let ourselves really sit and know that although your spine is flexible, there's no joint there. Like, how many times do you see people pick things up from kind of here, as if this is how they're going to get down through their waist, right? And that's just not the case. You'd want to bend your knees. Morgan is good at talking about stuff like that. But the integration I'm talking about is know that unless you're pulling yourself out of alignment, going back to that baby, there is an integration from your ear all the way down to your rear, or ear to rear. It's like this, you have a cervical curve in your neck, you have a curve in the lumbar spine. They're your shock absorbers. No question, those should remain. But you don't want to be here pushing forward or here slumping down. You've really pulled yourself out of alignment. So I'm needing just that integration through the spine. It's like not having a kink in the hose so the water can go up. Any other questions?
There's actually a lot of people have really great questions, and it's always a struggle, right, Melissa, with these introductions, because we want to teach you as much as possible in one, sitting, which is not really always possible. But maybe to piggyback off of what you said, Melissa, I can just introduce this idea of, paying attention to your body when you're doing things like sitting. I think that a lot of times people think of sitting as a sort of inactive activity. Like, oh, I'm sitting. It's like kind of like laying down. And in Alexander Technique, we really view sitting as another active activity, that we are using our bodies, in a sense, act of sitting down, right? Can I segue, Melissa? Are you okay with that? If
I'm totally fine. Yes.
Okay. Please. Because I just want to ask everybody, for example, I'd like you to go ahead and make a fist. And for those of you who have your cameras on and I see you, can you just show me your fist in the screen? Like, bring your hand so all of our friends can see your fist. Great. Okay. Oh, and look, Richard joined us. I love it. Okay. I just love to see people at 1 o'clock in the morning on Zoom. Now I want to tell you, you've got my 4-year-old daughter just gave you her precious butterfly. She asked you to keep it. Yeah, Gabriella's like, holy moly. Would you change your fist? How many of you would change your fist? Richard is saying yes. People, yes. Ashara, I hope I'm saying your name right. Yes. So what happens is, thank you, Sue. I love the thumbs up. Okay, people are awake. Good. So you can put your fist down. But this is me highlighting that when I first asked you to just make a fist, most of us tend to resort to a lot of unnecessary tightening. And that's actually very little what we need to do. In life, there's very few things that people are aware of that they can do with a lot less tension. And that's where Alexander Technique teachers come in. We're like, oh no, you can actually sit, stand, walk, move, exercise, and you can feel good more often when you do it. So there's an anatomical part, which, Melissa was talking about really knowing where is your body in space, right? And then there's this thinking component of, wait a minute, how am I doing something? Somebody's at the table with you. They say, hey, can you pass the sugar? And it's tomorrow morning. You're really tired. Like, oh yeah, let me pass the sugar. And then you say, wait a minute. Morgan said this could be easier. The sugar's right there. I'll just move my hand. I won't do anything else with the rest of my body, right? So it's paying attention to the habitual ways that we unconsciously are tightening our body, compressing our body, and then trying to navigate the world. And that lends itself to feeling uncomfortable, right? Like some of you were mentioning in the chat, feeling like I don't feel like I can get really comfortable in my body. And think about it. If you were in a conference room with a whole bunch of people, how many chairs are there usually? Like one kind of chair. But if you think about all the different kinds of people, the different heights, the different sizes, weights, etc., there are different kinds of people, and we're all expected to sit in that same chair comfortably. And if we don't know how to best use ourselves in those scenarios, we tend to go straight to the fists. We go straight to the tightenings, the tension, the compressions, and we don't have to do that, but we don't know how. So I always like to tell people, and I've heard Melissa say this in our classes before, the Alexander technique is the how to do things. How am I using my body? How am I thinking about navigating the world? And am I using it with a level of awareness, self-awareness, or am I using it from a place of unconsciousness? And so think about, friend, how often you think about your body. And typically, and you can put it in the chat if you want to, I'll try to read and teach at the same time. We can see how good I am at 1 a.m. But I think for most of us, we think about, oh, pain, right? Pain, when I'm uncomfortable, I'm definitely aware of my body. When I'm getting dressed, maybe when I'm eating, sometimes people are clever enough to say when they feel good, right? And I'm going to suggest, what about when you're thinking about something else? What about when you're writing an email to somebody and you're scrunching your head and getting really close to the computer? Can you pay attention to, wait a minute, I don't have to scrunch my head. I can adjust. Maybe I move my screen up and down. Oftentimes, I think most people, they compromise their body for their things, right? They compromise their body for their environment instead of saying my environment should help me. So I always like, and I'm going to get up because I like to move around. So let's say that I'm at Starbucks, okay? And somebody's by the coffee and we're still social distancing. We got the masks, And so usually we're kind of like, excuse me, I'm going to get the napkin, right? So we do all this like tightening to show that versus staying tall and saying, excuse me, and then using my feet and my hands to move around. I don't have to compromise any of this width, my length. I can use my feet and my arms. And so when Melissa, to go back to Sue's good question, when Melissa's talking about integration, it's keeping that spine elongated, keeping our heads poised on the top of our spine, and really using our bodies in a thoughtful and conscious way so that we're not unnecessarily tightening. We're not unnecessarily compressing. And the head, somebody talked about this, I think that was you, Gabriella, earlier, about the head struggling with the forward position, how a lot of us tend to have head forward. I think chiropractors call it actually like head forward posture. We call it head back and down. And I'll show you with my skeleton. Okay. So we call it head forward, right? Most people, we call it head back and down because this is what happens to the back of your neck. The neck muscles start to compress and the back of your skull is pressing on that, but it looks like the head comes forward. And we focus on releasing the neck muscles so that your head moves forward and up is what we call it. For every inch forward, it's something like 12 pounds, friends. So if you're uncomfortable in your body, no wonder if your head is coming forward at all, that's a lot of extra weight on top of your spine. Now, when I tell people this, then all of a sudden people are like, oh, let me hurry up and bring my head back. No, friend, you need not do that. Again, thinking about this idea of undoing, it's the tension from your fist, the tightness in your fist, and you simply let it go. So if you notice that your head is forward, all I'm going to suggest to you is let the neck muscles relax. You can try practicing what Melissa said, thinking about the jaw releasing, thinking about that tongue resting at the bottom of the mouth. And again, it's the thoughts that are being introduced to you that you can start to incorporate, right? It's not that you're going to get it overnight. Otherwise, people would get 6-packs overnight. They'd be like, oh, I'd like to change tomorrow. And it would happen. There's no way to quickly change muscles. But however, if you continuously practice this sort of consciousness and thoughtfulness about how you're using your body, are you moving from up here or are you moving from down here? Are you saying, oh, yes, or are you saying, oh, yes? You see, am I scrunching my spine or am I elongating? And that can be a little tricky for people. And again, we have a class. I'm sure Joelle has probably already put it in the chat. Maybe she'll do it at the end. So we do have a class that will go more in depth on all of this. Again, tonight is just sort of an introduction. But the idea is that we're teaching individuals, how can I be more conscious in my daily life so I can use this, right, my body, in a more mindful way. And I'm just going to leave, I'm paying attention to time. This is like Alexander technique on speed, guys. This is not usually how quick Melissa and I teach. So I want to give you one thing you could maybe try. And this is more for, you know, Charlie and Zeb, et cetera. For people who are feeling like they get uncomfortable when you're seated, here's a quick little thing you can do. Okay. You can, and I'm going to show you for my profile, you can slump. Okay. I know it sounds ridiculous because we're talking about posture, but think about taking the weight of that head off of your spine momentarily. And so I'll show you what it looks like. You're just going to let yourself come down here, and you're going to let your chin come all the way down. And when you do that, then ask yourself, can my chin come down further? And you're not pressing or pulling. You're just imagining like the weight of your head coming off that gorgeous spine of yours, and then let it seep all the way. And I'll take it even further down to the middle. So just let your lower back slump over, and you might be like, oh, this feels so juicy good. And you let your arms hang on the side, and then see if you could shake your head back and forth. Like you're saying, no, Morgan, I don't want to feel uncomfortable. And just see if your head moves easily. And then you can hang out here for a minute. This is what you can do when you're on your own. And I don't know if it's Dina. I think it's Dina. Is that right? You looked up. So I think it is Dina. Do me a favor, Chica. Can you let your head, put your hand on your head for me and really drop the forehead even further? Like let the whole weight of your head come off. You'd be surprised how far the head can go. And it'll feel like you have the weight of your head can rest in that palm of your hand. And then you'll slowly look up with your eyeballs like you're seeing. I have a fly in my room. Hopefully you guys don't have flies in your room. I live in Atlanta. Maybe that's why. I don't know what's going on. So you let your eyes come all the way up, and then you bring the whole spine width. And again, don't worry about good posture. That'll come. Good posture comes, I promise. If you want to see my bad posture photos, email me and I'll send you how I used to look like. I was a hot mess, friends. I was a hot mess. So posture can improve over time, but it's really as a result of learning how to better use yourself. It's kind of like if you think about exercise for people who go to a gym, right? Hopefully you don't go because you want to be a size whatever. Hopefully you go because it's good for you. And posture is really a byproduct of learning how to use your body with the Alexander technique better. Yeah, Charlie, does that feel a little bit better when you did that? I didn't actually see your neck go down, but I feel like your neck looks more relaxed. Am I on? Okay, yeah, okay, friend. So doing something like that occasionally, you could set an alarm on your iPhone to just give yourself a reminder, or anytime you feel neck tension, whenever you want to rub your neck, that's when I would suggest you do it. Just let that weight of your noggin, because the head weighs like 10 to 12 to 14 pounds, just depending on the size of the person, which I used to bring in person into my classes. I used to lug in 2 bags of flour to be like, this is about the weight of your head. And that's a lot. Like, I don't know about you. I like to bake. So go grab 2 bags of flour in your house and you'll be like, whoa, that's a lot. Yeah, that's your head, friend, on the top of your spine. So when you start thinking about using yourself in a way that's a little bit more conducive with this idea of ease, finding a relaxation, making sure that you have your breath, you'd be surprised how many times in your life you stop breathing, how many times in your life you start holding in places that are, it's like my butt cheeks don't need to be like clenched, even though I'm just in a line at Starbucks. But because you're running late, your butt cheeks are all of a sudden tight. And it's like, dude, I'm going to get my latte, so I might as well relax my butt cheeks and feel better when I leave with my latte, right? And so that's where that level of awareness comes in with this. Melissa, I hope you've been reading stuff, because I said I was going to
Yes,
but I wasn't. Get going.
there've been a bunch of questions about jaw clenching, which I think is really important. Also, somebody asked, they have neuropathic pain related to back issues. including scoliosis. Just, I would say for jaw clenching, it's one of the most common things that I work with new students. And a lot of times students will tell me that just finding space, someone asked how to unclench the jaws. I don't worry about it. One thing about this technique is and I think Morgan, you make this really clear, don't want to worry about how we're doing things. I would say very simply, find space between the back teeth, top and bottom, let the tongue be soft in your mouth, and just over time, let yourself find more ease. I think if we worry about how we're doing things or if we're getting it right, that creates another kind of mental compression or tension, which it can be in and of itself a little bit difficult. So I would say just sort of be curious. I think we all can sort of find ways. Another thing I've been doing recently, Morgan, for that is I really find space between the back teeth, let the tongue soften, and I allow the sides of my face to soften. That's been helpful. I just wanted to say, there's somebody named Sue who I think is studying with our friend Vital, because she said Brooklyn, Iyengar, and Alexander. He's fabulous, so that's very cool. But what about the question, Morgan, about scoliosis and pain in the back?
Yeah.
How would Alexander?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I actually, I have a YouTube channel, friends. I just did a video about how Alexander technique can help people with scoliosis. And in a nutshell, I'm going to sum it up to you in 60 long seconds. Basically, Alexander technique looks at the manner of use versus conditions of use. And what I mean by condition is, for example, my mom is handicapped. She was hit by a drunk driver a long time ago. So her condition is that one of her ankles is fused. We cannot change that. Okay, my mom's ankle is fused. That's her condition. Alexander technique looks at her manner of use, meaning how am I using my body in relationship to that cane? So if my mom is doing this, it's like she doesn't have to come down just because she has a limp. She can have a limp, but she can be relaxed and still have a limp and come up. So to take that one step further, it's again this idea that we can change how you're using your body within the conditions. So do I have scoliosis? Is my spine a little bit, and I'm going to exaggerate because I don't think people with scoliosis have such a dramatic curve, but let's say that I'm curved to this side, okay? Within that scoliosis, am I compressing or am I lengthening, right? And that's what we can work with. So there are limits to what Alexander technique can help with, but in my experience, there has not been an individual that we cannot help make life easier.
Yeah.
That's like a huge claim.
No, but I think,
yeah, when you become aware and you have more a heightened self-awareness, you're able to better approach how to self-care, right? So I always tell students, and I know that Melissa does this as well, it's your job as the student to question what we're saying and really decide, like, is there something to this? Does this resonate with me? Do I always walk like that? Do I sit like that? Where do I sit? Do I sit on my sit bones? Am I on my tailbone? So you take the information so that you can better understand how you use your body. Because how you use yourself today might be different from tomorrow, might be different from the next person, how you were last year. I had a student, she had cancer. She was 2 years in recovery and she still protected this side because at one point or another, she had to keep this area safe from water when she showered. I said, well, friend, don't you think you're done with that since you're totally in recovery now? She goes, yeah, but that habit is still there. And so that's where you start questioning, like, is this helping me? Is this something I need to be doing? And your body will be so, it will be so generous with the information it gives you. So with regard to exactly what that person was saying before about neuropathic pain and stuff like that, in my experience, there sometimes are limits to how much we can help people, right? Like we, you know, if it's something that's like a neurological disorder, like I can't change if somebody has Parkinson's or MS, but how you deal with the symptoms as a result of those things, that's usually where Alexander can come in helpful. Yeah, she's studying with Vitold. Lucky woman, Sue. We love Vitold. Yeah, so if there's, should I start talking about what we're going to be doing in class?
Yeah, I was thinking we have only about 6 minutes, so I wanted to talk about, first I wanted to let people know that one of the best ways to work on posture actually is lying on the floor, because when you're on the floor, gravity will really support the lengthening of the spine. I always go back to principle. The head is no longer, you're lying down, so your head's not pushing down on your neck at all. If you free your neck, you're going to start to get that upflow. And both Morgan and I have tapes. Morgan is video, right? And one audio. I have an audio. So if you look in the chat, Morgan has put our websites there. And I think that this practice, the lie down practice of constructive rest, is really an important one for you working on yourselves. Even if you don't take class, but if you do, we're going to really encourage you to do those constructive rest, to work with constructive rest. And if it helps you to use our audios and videos. So Morgan, you want to talk about the class?
Yes, and I just put in there, and I think Joelle, you were just sending that to me versus everybody. So you know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. So yeah, we have a class that's coming up, and just to, before I forget to piggyback, I put our websites, but I think you can find both of our constructive rest, mine's in my videos that I have on there, as well as an audio you can sign up for, and Melissa has an audio as well. And you can also email us if you have any questions or anything that you wanted to ask that you didn't have a chance to. So that's that information. And then we have this class that's going to be geared on posture. And we've got it broken down into 10 different weeks. And how we co-teach is that you get Melissa 1 week, you get me 1 week, you get Melissa 1 week and me 1 week. So we tag team and we both watch the other's video, which is awesome. Melissa and I have been doing this again since the beginning of the pandemic. And it's great because it's like we're teaching together, because I get to take her classes and learn. And then it's just a fun way for people to be learning. And you get 2 teachers' takes on the Alexander technique. So it's been really fun, and hopefully it's something that you might consider. It's an hour and 15 minutes every Wednesday, and it's 6:15 to 7:30, and they are recorded classes. So if you have to miss it, it's not a problem. You can definitely get that. And Gabrielle is asking if we'll run the series again. Probably. We've just kept going. It's been fun, and we've had people who are interested. The classes are not gigantic. I think enough people kind of miss and will watch the recordings that people have a chance to interact. So it's much more interactive.
Right. And you can come, you don't get stuck on mute. You can unmute. So what was sort of hard for us today, or at least for me, I can only speak for myself, we couldn't really talk with you guys. And that is a little bit difficult, but understand that in class, we'll have anywhere from 8 to maybe 12 people. And like, again, sometimes even less if people miss. And we really get a chance to work with you and really watch you move. And that is I think is really fun and helpful.
We've had some students, because we change each series. So we've had some people who've actually taken the series a couple of times. And it's been great to hear the feedback, because people are like, oh, I'm really starting to notice my walking is more comfortable. We've had some students who talk about like sitting is finally comfortable. People are getting themselves out of pain. And that's the thing. We're teachers. So we teach you and you learn, and then you get to use these skills on your own, right? So instead of having to go to somebody to rely on them to make you feel better, you get to learn, oh, how am I hurting myself? That makes me want to always go see the chiropractor or the PT or massage therapist. It's like you really get to the root. And then you explore, how can I help myself? And then we're there, of course, along the way to help you. So again, I'm mindful, Joelle just came on, so you know it's almost time. If you have any questions, hopefully you see Melissa and I are very passionate about this work. We love what we do. We like to help people learn this amazing technique. So if there are questions you have or you want to connect with us, do reach out, because we would love to talk with you further. So don't hesitate, friends, okay?
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure, really. Thank you so much for attending at this late hour.
So much, Melissa and Morgan. That was so insightful and wonderful.